Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Yeah, this will be a fun episode this week.
Yeah, fun crime syndicate.
We've got the last episode of the week, or last episode of the month, is a topic episode, buddy, where we've got you and me talking about something jiu-jitsu related, and a bonus, the article of the week. We're going to bring on our friend Joe Thomas, and he's going to discuss one of the articles he's written about, going to a different school and training there, like if you're traveling, that sort of thing. So, yeah, a lot of fun coming up this week, guys.
Yep, I always get a lot out of Joe's articles, and his articles are even better because we have him on. What kind of a better way to talk about the article than have the author visit with us? So don't miss that part, and grab your popcorn, sit back, and relax.
Yep, Gary always enjoys his popcorn with podcast.
Yep, and what else I enjoy with my podcast is I like to get my podcast hot and fresh, just like I have my donuts each and every week at the same time. So definitely check out our email list. Just put your email in there, and bam, every week, not every 2 weeks, every week, I'm sorry, you will get your show notes delivered right to your inbox, so you'll never miss an episode.
There you go. Pretty easy. Gary, we've got a few ways you can support the podcast, but one of them involves us supporting you. And if you're in your first year of jiu-jitsu, this could be the thing that helps you get through that with success, not just struggle your way through and get through it and say, hey, I've been doing this a year and it's been miserable. We want you to have fun, enjoy the process, and really get the most out of your training. Your first year in BJJ audiobook, $11.99. It's me talking to you, walking you through all the hurdles that you might encounter during that first year. And it's everything from picking a school to even if you want to compete within that first year, which you don't need to, but it is an option. And a lot in between. It's about 2.5 hours long, and I'll be your guide, and I'll definitely do my best to share what the things I've learned about jiu-jitsu with you and get you through that first year being a great success.
Yep, so definitely check it out. It's got some great reviews, and definitely help your game out. I know training with Byron has helped my game out, so check it out.
Yep, and Gary was there during my first year, and I was there for most of his.
Yep, except for 2 weeks, because I started 2 weeks earlier than Byron, just so everybody knows.
Well played, Gary.
Well played.
The gift of being on the mat a little bit longer. This week we're going to be talking about using your gifts, your natural gifts, the gifts that you have for BJJ. And so I found a quote that was kind of related to that. This quote is by Seth Godin. Wouldn't it be great to be gifted? In fact, it turns out that choices lead to habits. Habits become talents. Talents are labeled gifts. You're not born this way. You get this way. And that's true about a lot of the gifts or the things that you look at yourself. A lot of those are created by you. You know, if you are on the mat and you're one of the stronger people on the mat, you're like, man, this gift of strength is something that I'm really enjoying on the mat. It seems to be a big advantage. You created that. I mean, that was, maybe you did some athletics before you got to jiu-jitsu. Maybe you just have a passion for exercise and fitness. If you are naturally prone to getting out there and exercising, that's something that has benefited you on the mat. And you turn these habits into talents. And then those talents, people call you gifted. So it's a nice quote, and I like it. And I think it's good to look at the gifts that we talk about today and know that a lot of those are actually earned with blood, sweat, and tears. And some of them are just gifts. Like, I'm relatively healthy. I haven't got any major sicknesses in my life. So, and that's a gift. That's nothing I could do. I could eat better and train smarter and become unhealthy, and there's nothing I can do about that. So there's, like genes or genetics or whatever. But yeah, Gary, what do you think about this quote?
I really like the quote. I like the part, it turns out that choices lead to habits, and habits become talent. And, you do hear people, that all the time, and it doesn't just translate onto the mat. It can be, any sport. It can be, in the workplace. And I just think, making the right choices, then working hard, studying, getting very good at it, like you were talking about weightlifting, how to get stronger, how to get more powerful, and next thing you know, everybody's talking about, it's a gift, but, you put a lot of time into that to get that strong or to get that fast or to whatever, whatever labeled gift that people are talking to. But, it's your choices and then working hard from there.
Yeah, we'll talk to our friend Joe Thomas in a little bit here, but he always says, train hard, train smart, get better.
Get better.
And the getting better is the part that, like, that guy is gifted at this, a lot of times he's just been training hard. He's been training smart, or she, and she's gotten better. So, and we'll get more into the gifts here in just a few seconds, Gary, because I think it's time to get into the topic portion of the show.
I think, Byron, you should give me a gift.
Okay. I am passing out knuckle sandwiches, my friend.
There's nothing better than a knuckle sandwich, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, since we're not even in the same location, I did see you this morning, but I did not get to punch you in the face.
Yeah,
Dang.
I noticed you ran quickly when I looked into your direction.
Yeah. Very scary. And
but it could have been because of my pink tie-dyed gi.
That's true. Gary, I don't get why you're wearing a tie-dyed gi.
In no gi, especially.
Yeah, in no gi. Oh, man. The weird thing is when you go to Gary's house unexpectedly and he answers the door, he's wearing a pink tie-dye gi.
No, Byron, that was actually the pink tie-dye romper, not the gi. I only wear the gi on the mat.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting a bit out of control here, Gary.
Yep. Byron, just start rubbing your fingers through your man bun and you'll feel a lot better.
Gary,
it'll get you back down.
I don't even have any hair, hardly. We discussed this morning. I don't even own a comb.
Byron, you should let part of it grow out so you can do a man bun.
Okay.
And that would take care of some of your stress.
That would. I think this is a good idea.
Yep. And plus, they'll give me a handhold when we're doing jiu-jitsu.
You always got to work the advantage. So
yes.
the gift of a handhold for Gary, I'm going to avoid that one. But I think let's look at these different gifts we have we're going to talk about. A lot of them are going to be physical, some mental, and then some situational. I kind of have three different categories. So some physical gifts. Maybe you played sports in the past. Now, whether that was you wrestled 25 years ago or, you played football last semester and now you're wanting to do jiu-jitsu. Gary, can you tell if somebody had wrestled 25 years ago and they're stepping on the mat now and they haven't done anything since?
Oh, yes. But, I mean, you can have somebody tell you they wrestled for 2 weeks and quit. I've actually had that before. Somebody tells me, yeah, I've wrestled, and we get on the mat and you're like, wait, you really wrestled? And then you talk to them. Well, I did it when I was in third grade for 2 weeks, or, that really doesn't count. But you can take a high school wrestler who quit wrestling at 18 and let's say wrestled 4 years in high school from, 15 to 18. And then 25 years later to when he's 43 years old, you can tell that person wrestled. They have that muscle memory. They move a little bit different. They may be a little off just because they haven't done it in 25 years, but you can tell they'll still have it.
Yeah,
still have some of it. It's just it'll take some drilling to get it all back. But once a wrestler, always a wrestler. With that technique
until they become a jiu-jitsu person.
Well, yeah, I guess you say. But still, I once a wrestler, always a wrestler. I still think. You want to blend it and keep the best of both.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I don't think that all of a sudden you just want to flop to your back and play guard. If you've got that, really strong top game, let's start with that and build a game off of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. But the odds are, if you wrestled many, many years ago, you weren't thinking about jiu-jitsu and thinking about, how is this going to help me down the road? You were doing wrestling for wrestling's sake, but really that was a kind of a gift the younger you gave you. A strong base, good balance, just the ability to grab on the hold of somebody and control them. These things are going to come more naturally to you because you have that past of wrestling. And you could say something about football or basically a lot of sports will give you similar things to work off of, similar groundwork. And even just the idea of working out and exercise and training physically for something. versus somebody who has never done any sort of athletic activity comes in. They have more to learn. Not that it can't be done, but they're going to have a bit more of a learning curve.
A couple other sports that I see, well, I guess one of them, I don't know if it's art. I don't know if it's necessarily a sport, but I guess it could be. But, I've seen some gymnastics people, and it just seems like they're very, very strong and flexible. A lot of that body weight stuff and holding their body on rings and bars and stuff like that, just incredible strength and the flexibility to go with that. I've rolled with a couple new people that did gymnastics, and I was just, really, really impressed. And, I know my sample size is small, but I probably rolled with 3 or 4 that just blew me away when they first started. I was just really impressed. But, also I've rolled with a couple people who were really good on their back and on the mat and never had wrestled or really played sports, but they were into breakdancing, which seems kind of weird. But, then I started thinking about it, and, breakdancing, I think, can really help you with a dynamic guard game. And, I've wrestled with a couple guys who said they really just breakdance their whole life and really impressed me. So, it's just crazy, like some of the sports that really translate over to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think there'll be positives from many, many things. Breakdancing's an interesting one, Gary. And I know you do get involved in some different activities off the mat, and I didn't know breakdancing was one of those that you were really interested in. But that's cool.
When I said I break dance, I meant that I twist my ankle and break my ankle when I'm trying to dance. I didn't mean I do the break dancing that you've seen in Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo.
And this translates over when you play guard, you get your ankles broken by somebody who just wants to ankle lock you.
Yeah, yep. So works out perfect.
We're talking about physical gifts here. He mentioned flexibility. Some people, genetics, same thing with some strength. Some people are just naturally a little bit stronger than others, but you could take it to another level if you try to develop that thing. So, maybe you have done gymnastics or some athletic activity that helped you become more flexible, or maybe that's something that you've worked on for a long time, and now you're finally able to be considered flexible. And but that's a gift, your flexibility, your coordination, and depending on the health of your body, injuries could take away some of your flexibility and that sort of thing. But it's something that some people use. Gary, do you think that people could overuse like the gift of strength or flexibility?
I think you could overuse strength, and let me clarify that. Like I think strength is great to have, and definitely want it. But what I'm trying to say is I don't necessarily think you can overuse your strength in a match or, in how do I say it, in a self-defense situation or MMA situation. But I think sometimes when you're just trying to learn, I think you can use your strength a little too much when, instead of getting the technique down a little bit better. But, geez, if I had some of that, crazy strength, I'd be using it all the time. But flexibility, I don't know if you could really overuse that. The one thing, I'm not very flexible. I work on it. I've really got better at my hips, moving my hips in and out, which makes it look like I'm flexible. A lot of people think I am. Just I'll end up getting in a better position because I've had to, that I'm not flexible. But I don't know if you could really overuse your flexibility. And what are you laughing at, Byron?
I'm going to leave the moving the hips in and out right there, and we're just going to move on. So, yes, strength could be used and kind of abused, but I think I can make an argument that flexibility can be abused as well. Typically, the people who are playing like really flexible games, really, they're into it and they love it, and that's great. And you could become very good at jiu-jitsu playing these games where you get folded up and your leg ends up behind your head and around their neck at the same time and all this crazy stuff. But you may not always have that flexibility. So for me, I haven't lost my flexibility, but I'm playing less of a flexible game than I could, because I want to develop a game that I could play in 10 or 20 or 30 years and not have to throw away a large part of it because, well, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, so that is a good point.
just for effectiveness of long-term training, I think investing really heavy into the flexible side of your training could cost you further down the road. And if it's one of those hiccups that makes you discouraged, let's say you're always getting rolled up on your neck and you're always doing these crazy things, and then you get a neck injury, and it's like, well, I can't do that anymore. Do you quit? Or do you keep going? I mean, that might be one of those roads that you have to consider which one to go down. And if you kind of gate back that a little bit and you don't spend so much time into these high flexible games, if that sort of thing happens to you, you just, you go down the other path that's pretty good already.
Yeah. Byron, you were talking about my hips going in and out, but
yes,
you actually said, you did say go down on that one. So just want to let you know.
Got me.
But no, that is a good point. I didn't think of it that way. And I guess, too, a lot of times the really flexible people, I do see them spend a lot of time in some, crazy guards, tornado guards and stuff like that, and maybe don't work on their top game enough. So, I mean, you really got to work all your game, and we're not saying that they're not working their top game, but, it's – you really want to get good technique. You want to make sure you're a well-rounded individual. And then, once it comes tournament time, then you break out all your flexibility or your strength.
Yeah. And another gift that we could talk about that's physical, speed.
Definitely.
Speed is a fickle friend, and it will eventually leave you. I mean, it may be 10, 20, 30. It may be quite a bit down the road, but you don't see a lot of people in their 70s that are all that fast anymore. And you do see people running marathons, but like mat speed, like making that quick burst, that's going to fade after about 35 or so. And, same thing. If your whole game, you're 18 right now, and yeah, you love competing, and you just blow past everybody, you're going as fast as you can, using all the speed that you can, that's great. But be preparing in the back of your mind, someday I'm not going to be able to do this. Someday I'm going to need to have a different type of game. And it might just be going from, really enjoying no-gi a ton, like Gary's always using the speed, to switching over to gi, where some of that speed is easily neutralized by some of the grabs that we're able to get.
Well, one thing I've found, and speed, I do have trouble with the fast younger guys. That speed is, just incredible. But I do think as you get older, I'm not as fast. I can say that myself. But I think you kind of make up for it a little bit by having better technique. You become more efficient. You know where to be at all times. So when it does become a scramble, I may be a lot slower, but I'm taking shortcuts. My technique is better, which is keeping me almost as fast as I used to be. I still lose a lot of scrambles, but I think I'd really get destroyed in scrambles if my technique wasn't better. So I think you do kind of adapt to that, but you are correct. As you do get older, you start losing that. But it's a great thing to have, is some speed. Not the drug speed. We're talking about physical speed.
Yeah, and we spent a whole episode talking about your speed and jiu-jitsu. And Gary, I really enjoyed that cover art there on that episode.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, wanting to buy that. We do not have them printed yet, but hopefully here someday down the road, we'll get some printed and have them be able to ship them.
Absolutely. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the cover art for the episode that's titled Speed and Your BJJ. You could probably just type in speed in our search bar and it'll pop right up. It was probably a month or two ago. But yeah, that was a surprise for Gary to see, and he took it quite well.
That you surprised me on that one, but I thought it was pretty funny.
Another physical gift is just the simple idea of being coordinated or having good balance. Some people just seem to walk around and be a little more clumsy than others. If you ask my little toe, it's grumpy all the time because I'm always slamming it into the furniture. Some people don't do that to themselves. Some people, you show them a technique and they're very smooth with it when they kind of pick it up the first time. And some people aren't. And, that's just how it is, I guess. You may look, I bet you could look further back into it and see that, this person did these activities as a kid or when they were younger, and that probably helped them become a more graceful person on the mat. But I don't know about coordination. It's easy to track back and look at strength or maybe speed as an asset or as a thing that you have and how you got that. But some people just appear to be very coordinated. And if you have that gift, of coordination or balance, try to find ways to use it to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. Coordination and balance are very important in the sport. You're off with your balance, you're going to get swept a lot. Your coordination's not there, and you're going to have a hard time. We do, put ourselves in some weird positions. But like you said, I do think I think the majority of us are pretty uncoordinated when we start this sport, even if we've done other sports before. And the reason I kind of think that, unless they've wrestled before, because most of the stuff we're doing in jiu-jitsu, I don't think those are movements that you did in PE class, or that you do in different sporting events, playing basketball. A lot of times we're on our back and we're shrimping and we're bridging and we're doing some awkward movements that, with the sports you grow up doing, a lot of those movements don't really apply. So I do think that's something that, with repetition, you are going to get coordinated. You are going to get a lot better. So just because you don't have the coordination element when you first start, which the majority of us don't have, don't let it upset you. Keep going, and pretty soon you'll be like a very coordinated, calm cougar.
Gary, you mentioned, the shrimping and these sort of things are unnatural. I think that's a good point. If you could look at people who are brand new on the mat, or remember the time when you were brand new on the mat and you were doing shrimp crawls, or you were doing forward rolls or backward rolls or gator crawls or Granby rolls or whatever, you felt like a clumsy person on the mat.
That is true. And,
weeks go by and you keep doing these. You pick up one or two here and there. It get a little easier for you. And now you may have one that is a little bit challenging for you, but you're getting a hold of that one too. And before you know it, you feel pretty smooth and you don't look like quite the crazy person on the mat flopping around as you go through and do these. And I think that's a good point. As you train and develop these muscles to fire and to work, you'll become a person who looks like they're more coordinated. And it might just be that the good guard player looks very coordinated at picking up a new guard move because they have all those muscles ready to go and they've been playing guard for a long time. And the good guard passer that likes to pass standing is developing that great sense of balance because they're always almost getting knocked over, but they're fighting to stay on their feet. And so I think that's one great thing about jiu-jitsu is that these physical assets, we're developing them constantly by training. As we've talked about, like speed, strength, flexibility, coordination, playing sports in your past, those are all physical things that you're able to see and to have on the mat. Another category of physical is just who you are. Are you 7 feet tall or are you, 4 feet 10? That also can be considered, a gift on the mat if you could use it correctly.
Yeah, and that's not something you can change. We can't just do more bridges or do more push-ups to get taller or shorter. It's not going to work. So that's something that, we're stuck with. Unless you're younger, because then you might grow taller.
Yeah, or, you start smoking at a young age and maybe you'll stunt your growth. That's a that. Not that we're endorsing that, but
no, but there's a guy I know that I actually train with. I won't mention his name. His name's Craig, but his growth was stunted, and I think that happened to him. And at least that's what I heard, but who knows?
Who knows? But if you're walking around the mat and you're 6'5" and you're not finding ways to use your height as an advantage, you're probably selling yourself short a little bit.
I like that one.
Yeah, and you don't have to be tall to have long legs. Maybe you're normal height, but your legs are a little bit longer than they should be, and your triangle is going to be amazing, and nobody really looks at you and says, "Oh, he's going to have a good triangle. He's got long legs." No, it's a surprise because you're an average height, but you have some physical. Maybe you have long arms, and your Darce choke is going to be easier to set up for you. I don't know. You could probably look at most submissions and say, is it better to be tall or better to be short? And with short people that actually get triangles, those things are tight. Those things lock in. And it's like, man, there's no wiggle room at all. So, there's advantages to that. I think from my experience, and I've rolled with a lot of really talented people who are quite a bit shorter than me, they're hard to submit. They're hard to get their arms away from their body and isolate the limb.
Yeah, I do have trouble with that. I mean, but then, some of the tall guys, trying to pass those legs and, also, it seems like with those legs, they can hit triangles from everywhere. So, like Byron was saying earlier, find a way to use your body, to its peak, to make your game a little bit better, a little bit more unique.
Yeah. And it's not just an advantage to be tall. I really think, the short people are harder to submit. You have less leverage on somebody if their arm is shorter. So, if you're controlling their arm at the wrist and you're trying to manipulate that, if the arm is shorter, you have less leverage to control that person. Does that make sense, Gary?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. You got a shorter fulcrum, so makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if I did a good job explaining that, but just find ways and know that as you're training and you're learning techniques, that not every technique is going to be perfect for you, especially if you're in one of the extremes of the tall or the short. If you're kind of in the middle, you could probably make most things work. But you don't need everything to work for you. Find what does work and then develop that and just go with it.
But definitely learn everything and don't have a closed mind. If somebody tells you, you can't triangle because you're shorter, you have short legs. And like Byron said, that same guy we were talking about earlier, Craig, boy, when he gets you in a triangle, he's got short legs, but man, that thing is tight. You're not getting out. You might as well tap quickly.
Any other physical things we should talk about, or should we move on to the mental gifts that we have?
Well, since mental is my expertise, I think we might want to go on to there.
Okay. I have a couple things written down here. I don't think Gary has a list, but we'll just kind of run through these is what we've been doing. Having patience. So as a teacher or a student, being a patient person could definitely be a gift on the mat.
Yeah, definitely. Like I always like to say about jiu-jitsu, it's being comfortable in uncomfortable positions. And you're going to get put in positions that aren't comfortable, that aren't fun to be in. You're in some pain. It's hard to breathe. But, patience can go a long way. Seems like a lot of times people end up spazzing out or trying so hard to get out of an uncomfortable position that, they make some incorrect moves, doing anything to get out of it, and they expose a body part. They're not patient. They're trying to, get out before their hands are in the right place without using perfect technique.
Yeah, that's a great aspect of patience is just kind of keeping your head when you're in trouble. I think a coach that has patience is a better teacher than a coach that is easily frustrated and short with their students. I mean, night and day difference as far as who you're going to ask a question. Hey, Coach, I don't really understand what you just said, and can you explain this to me? Do you want the coach to be, man, I told you 3 times about this, and I got to show you again? Or do you want the coach, yeah, let me show you again. I'll try to make that more clear this time and communicate it in a way that I can show you. So I think as a coach, or as an instructor, or gym owner, having patience is going to be great to help you be successful doing those roles.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I also think as a jiu-jitsu practitioner that having patience, especially when you're first learning, we were talking about coordination and you're not going to feel really great when you first start doing it. Everything's going to be awkward. But having that patience, I think you have a better chance of sticking with it long term. It's a tough sport, and you're going to feel awkward, and a lot of times you're not going to get something, and it's easy just to throw your hands up in the air and say, "Man, I can't do this," and storm off the mat. But that person with the patience will keep trying and trying and trying, and sooner or later, they're going to pull off that move. Yeah,
that's a good point, Gary. Another mental gift would just be the gift of having a good memory. And sure, we could tweak our memories and practice and train, but some people are really good about remembering techniques. I am not one of those. I routinely am in class and somebody will say, "Hey, remember you showed me this, and what about this part?" And I'll be like, "I don't remember showing you that at all. Are you sure it was me?" "Yeah, it was you." And I get teased about that quite a bit because I don't remember techniques that I don't forget all the techniques, but there's a lot of stuff I've forgotten about jiu-jitsu. And that's just not one of my gifts, is having that strong encyclopedia in my head of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu techniques.
Well, the crazy thing is I am really good at remembering techniques and remembering stuff you might have shown me a year ago, but I can't remember like normal daily tasks, like I got to go return this at the store, or I got to go buy bread or milk. I always forget that. And it's kind of strange. I never really thought about it till you were talking about that, but maybe I remember jiu-jitsu a little bit better because for me, it's a high priority versus remembering to get milk. Like, I may forget breakfast because I don't have milk, but that's not as high a priority as training jiu-jitsu. I don't know, but it's kind of weird. I never thought about that, but I do remember the moves, but people think I'm absent-minded all the time because I forget stuff.
Yeah, it just, our brains work differently, I think. But yeah, I think having that deep interest in the topic at hand. So if it's something related to a guillotine choke or something like that, I'm going to remember the detail you showed me because I'm interested in doing guillotines right now. But if you show me, a sweep off a spider guard or something like that, I haven't played spider guard in quite a while, and I'll probably forget it within the month. That's the way I am. And some people just have. My brother-in-law, I was out with him not too long ago, and there was a phone number on a business, and I will call them when they open up here in a little bit. And I was getting ready to jot the number down on my phone, and he's like, "I got it." And we just walked off, and he just looked at the phone number, and then 20 minutes later, he dials it. Like, I couldn't do that. I would have to really
awesome.
Struggle to, like, 529-877 and try to remember some number. But he looked at it and he had it. And he knew he had it. And that's, some people have those type of a mind, and sure, you could practice and train with that. And maybe, people who are really good at remembering techniques are actually going home and writing them down and running through them again in their mind to really get those in deep. And so it looks like it's an easy thing for them, but it might not be. But it doesn't really matter. If that's something that you want to be good at, work on it and become, the best you can at that category of remembering techniques. And yeah, writing them down will be a big one. Reviewing them the next day, having a genuine interest in what's being shown to you really helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Another trait that some people have and some people just struggle with is being a people person. And this may not help you a ton, in the finals of the absolute division, but it's going to help you socially train better and smarter and getting people to help you in your journey. It's going to help you develop your own school. So somebody new walks in, and do you kind of look at them like, oh, that guy looks tough? Or do you go up there to introduce yourself and welcome them to the gym? And we don't need everybody to do that, but if that's something that naturally comes to you, use that. That's a great asset for the entire gym, to have people that are just friendly, social people that just want to meet people. They're good with names, and being a people person could be a pretty big asset. Gary, can you think of a way that being that type of a person could help you actually get better at jiu-jitsu?
Oh yes, definitely. People want to train with people they like. So, let's just say I'm a new person who goes into a gym, and, a lot of times, I do hear it all the time that, the new person, people won't train with them. I do hear that. And, I think one of the things, if they like you, if people like you, they're going to devote time to you, your teammates, not your coach. Your coach should be, working with everybody. But, I really think that if somebody likes you, that they may take you under their wing. They're going to teach you stuff. They're going to train with you. They're going to invite you to extra training sessions. Let's say there's a training session, and let's say somebody has mats at their house or has a key to the gym. You get a better chance to be invited to that. So, I think just being well liked, that people, you have a good personality, and people want to train with you, I think is definitely going to help you become a better person, better jiu-jitsu person.
Yeah, they're going to show you those techniques that they may not have gone out of their way to help you with before, if they think that to give you as a friend. And I do think that'll help you. I think that people who are friendly have a competitive advantage on the mats in their training processes than people who are grumpy and negative all the time. I think that's a great asset to getting good at jiu-jitsu, is being sociable and getting along with people.
Yep, I agree with you there.
Like you think about taking someone under your wing and kind of helping them develop as a martial artist. Generally speaking, do it to somebody who you like. The person who is not friendly, who is rude to everybody. That person's on their own a lot, and yeah, they're going to go to class, they're going to learn stuff, and go through the motions. But do they have that upper belt saying, "Hey, buddy, listen, I want to roll with you every time we have a chance. Every time we're in class together, I want to get a roll with you to help you get better." Probably not. Not with that attitude. So I do think having a good attitude, being a people person, really does help you get better at jiu-jitsu significantly.
Yep, definitely, I agree.
Another one here on my list is being a competitive person. And we could take this too far one way or the other, as far as, not being very competitive at all and just not really caring and just getting really upset and mad when things, don't go your way, in competition or in training. And there's definitely a happy balance of being competitive enough to fight hard and to train hard and to not, tap, way too early. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's good to learn how to fight out of things and have a little competitive spirit. But it can go both ways. Gary, can you think of ways that being a competitive person will either be a positive or a negative?
One way I think that it could, definitely help is that competitiveness. Like you said, you're going to get out of positions instead of just tapping early. There's sometimes you may tap early, but did you really put yourself in that position where, if you do get in a tournament, you don't want to tap that early, and the competitiveness of really just trying to, win all the time. And I'm not that way. And I know a lot of people don't like to train with somebody that way all the time, but I don't know. It just seems like I see the people that are really competitive do better. In the long run, they're always, trying to win. They're keeping score all the time in their head. I do see those people getting discouraged a little bit more than the less competitive person. And I'm not that really competitive person. And sometimes I wish I was more competitive. I think it would help my game. So that's one thing that, I do think myself I need to work on a little bit more is, not as many playful roles and try to get competitive. But I also see the other spot. Sometimes if you're too competitive and you're too worried about tapping out, you're not putting yourself in bad positions. Let's an example is, let's say I'm really, really good on top, and if I get on top, you're not moving, and I'm going to submit you, or I'm going to ride you out and win the match, through points. Just really, really grinder on top, but my bottom game may be really bad. And if you're so worried about winning every match in practice, you're probably not putting yourself in bad spots. So you want to put yourself in bad spots to get better at your weaknesses. If your weakness is, the bottom, work on trying to get up off the bottom and reversing to get top position. Also put yourself in some bad positions where you're going to, be almost submitted, let the guy, get you in, put yourself in, like today when I was rolling with Byron. Byron's got a very, very good guillotine. And I don't know if you noticed, or a couple times I kept just pushing forward with my head to get put into that position, just so that I could try to work out of there. I wanted to get put in a bad position because I do have trouble with Byron's guillotines. And, we weren't rolling 100%. We were rolling like 70%. So, I was like, hey, what a better time to put myself in this position where, Byron's not going to rip my head off. I can, try to maneuver myself out and make me better at a position that I feel I'm not doing a great job at and I need to get better at.
A couple of things about that, Gary. That was my 110%. So I feel a little bit weak now saying that to you. But, you did the classic thing. I'd come at you with 110% and you'd trap me in 50-50 guard. And it kind of neutralized that. And
well, you think 50-50 is 100. 110 is 110. 110 minus 50-50 is 10.
Oh. So you got me down to 10%.
Oh, I never said that.
and you kept putting your head in my guillotine to see what would happen. Actually, I've been working on that. It's a Jedi mind trick. I just get you to put your head in my guillotine, Gary. You want to put your head in my guillotine. And it's working out pretty good.
Well, I think we should then go back because that should be under the mental part. We didn't talk about that
Mind
as a mental
tricks, yes.
gift. Yeah.
I do see the competitive thing being both a positive and a negative. I know some guys who are phenomenal grapplers, and sometimes we get in these days where we're rolling. You're on the mat rolling for an hour and a half, and just like tons of rounds, and it's crazy. The windows are all fogged up with sweat, and those guys, you go up to them, it's going to be a good roll. Hey, you ready to roll? No, man, I think I'm going to sit out this one, or I'm done, man. I'd rather not. And that competitive side, they don't want to put their tired self forward and push that person because they know it's not going to go well. And I think that holds them back a little bit. Especially the people who are wanting to compete, because eventually in a competition, if you keep pushing forward in a bracket, or you enter into another division, you're looking at getting tired sometime, and you need to be able to learn how your body acts and what it feels like to be super tired and to still want to win and be competitive and strong. And I think being competitive with your training, it could have some pretty negative side effects.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
But I'm also, somewhat disappointed by somebody who is so non-competitive with the training. So you grab somebody who is going to be tough, and they're just handing you everything. They're putting their necks in guillotines for you, and But wake up, man. We're rolling. We're trying to have a good roll here, and you're just being a little bit too laid back sometimes, and that might be more my attitude at the time. Come on, let's get my good roll in here. I'm only going to get a few rolls today, and I know this will be a good one if you want to show up and roll with me good. So, I'm okay. I'm just kind of working on this, and I don't care. Like, man, I think it could go both ways.
Yeah, it's I really hate rolling with a person who is too non-competitive, and it's sometimes it just feels like a wet noodle. They're not fighting back at anything, and I'm not saying we have to be like it's the finals of the Abu Dhabi, but bring a little bit to it. Sometimes that guy who's too non-competitive doesn't really bring any fire to the table. He's not only hurting himself, he's hurting his teammate too. You've got to ratchet it up a little bit. You're here, to help your teammates out. And, one of our authors that, has done a lot of articles for us, Joe Thomas, he always talks about how he's really there to help his teammates. And that really non-competitive person can help your teammates in situations where you got somebody injured or whatever. But if you're getting ready for a tournament, or somebody like myself who doesn't get to train all the time, I try to maximize the most of the time on my mat, and a really, really slow round isn't going to help me out with what I need. So always think about, your teammates too, trying to help them become better.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gary. A lot of these gifts you have, you'll be able to pass on benefits to your teammates. So physical, mental, and then there are situational gifts. Are you in a place that's a jiu-jitsu hotbed? Are you somewhere where there's world champions miles away from you? That is quite the gift. And whether you moved across the country to get there, or you just happen to live there with your family and that just is in front of you, take advantage of that if that's available.
Yeah, definitely. Here in Wichita, Kansas, basically when we first started, there was one school in town. It was not a hotbed. At that time, I think the only hotbeds were really Florida, California, and New York, but besides Brazil. But some people really do have a choice of 100 different schools, and world champions to train with, and really big rooms, and really talented guys in those rooms, and some people don't have that opportunity. But just because the situational gift, just because you're not in that spot and you may only have one school to train, and it may not be the highest belt teaching. Remember, you get better just by training. So, don't use that as an excuse not to train, but it is, it would be more beneficial to have, bunch of high-level people to train with.
Yeah, you got to look at your situation and look at what you want to do with your jiu-jitsu. If you're happy training, winning regional tournaments, and training with your coach that you have in town, that's fantastic. If you want to go and win a world championship, you may have to do some traveling. You might have to move, or a lot of people just move everything and train at a school full time. I mean, that's what you're looking at now as far as winning world championships. Training full time, white belt level, you're training all the time. So all the way up to black, of course, they're not training less than that. But being near that really talented group of people is definitely a gift if that's the one that you're fortunate enough to have. If not, make the most of what you have. Your school has you, and that's a good start.
Yep, the best thing you said right there is make the best of what you have. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and you'll get going.
One of the most heartbreaking things that we see in jiu-jitsu is to have somebody that has struggles with the family life. And that does, of course, that's going to affect their jiu-jitsu, but really, sometimes that doesn't really matter. Like, the gift of having a stable family life is huge. And if that's you, it's often overlooked. You go years and you're happy with your marriage, or you're happy with your kids or your siblings or whatever you have going on, or your parents, or whoever you're living with, and everything's good. But when your family life is not stable, when there's something wrong with somebody, or some social problems with people, it pretty quickly puts a shadow on jiu-jitsu and says, what's important? And family is a big deal. And so having a stable family life is a tremendous gift that goes overlooked for years and years if you're lucky. It's really a blessing to be able to not have to think and worry about your family being healthy. So that's a gift you can't really control so much. You try to live healthy lives, but if you're having problems at home and or you have a spouse that doesn't support you doing jiu-jitsu, it's going to be a lot tougher road to go down. And I would recommend that you try to show them some benefits of jiu-jitsu versus just fight them all the time about, yeah, I'm going to jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I'm going. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting exercise. I feel better. I think I'm really doing a lot of good for my body as I train and get better at this, and it's doing a lot for me off the mat. I'm not just getting time away from the family as I train. It's really bringing a lot back when I come back home.
Yeah, I see that a lot. People do have reasons for not training, and sometimes it can be with a family. And I kind of went through it myself when my kids were younger, and I didn't want to spend as much time away from my kids. And, what I started doing is, when my kids were little, I'd bring them to jiu-jitsu with me. And I figured I would kind of immerse them in my culture, let them see that. And if they want to train later on, they can. If not, I just think it's good that they know what I do. They know, who my friends are. It's kind of neat. Like my son today asked me if I saw Bob today, a guy I trained with this morning. And I was like, yeah. And that's just neat when you hear that. Because my son didn't go with me. And on top of that, it would give my wife a break. Where when I'm talking when kids were really little, they're a handful, and you gotta watch every move they make, and it'd give her a little bit of break and allow her to just rest or do whatever she wants, have some me time, I guess. And I always found it good to just tell my significant other what I was doing. Hey, this is jiu-jitsu. This is what it means to me. She sees how it helps me mentally. I can have a really rough day, and it just seems like I'm a better person when I do come back from jiu-jitsu. I've got everything off my mind, and I'm just training. Another point that I've seen from people too, where their significant others is, just one guy I train with has lost a lot of weight. And, he's probably lost 20 pounds since he started training probably a couple years ago. And like his wife's like, man, you look really good.
Yeah, sexy.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's you can't go wrong with, losing weight or getting a little more buff. A lot of times your significant other is going to love that. So plus for everybody there.
Yeah. One thing that Gary's wife always tells me is, she always enjoys the hour and a half to 2 hours that he's gone, and just gives her some space.
Well,
gives her
Byron,
a break from some Gary.
It's at least 2.5 hours. She would be mad if I came back in an hour and a half.
As you're rolling in the driveway, she's backing out, leaving. Hey, I'm just going to go do some other stuff.
And that way she can turn it into 4 hours.
Yeah. You double that right there.
But, it is a give and take, and it does stink. Like, sometimes if your significant other doesn't really want you to do it, and I mean, then you get to the point, it's like, hey, what comes first, my relationship or jiu-jitsu? But, I just think a good relationship, you do have to have time to yourself, or try to talk your significant other into training. I know Byron, I know Becky comes and trains there too. I mean, that's always a cool option there too.
Yeah. I always am a little suspect of a significant other. Maybe you have a girlfriend you're thinking about getting married, and she doesn't like you training. She sees how much you enjoy it, or he, and they're like, I don't like you doing that all the time.
Yeah. Byron, what would you do if you were in that situation? Like if you were getting ready to date a guy and he did not want you to train. And I mean, you're not married. This is a guy that you've just met wants to. Would you do it? Would you?
I'm trying to just really immerse myself in the situation and just
I don't think I could.
Really think about how I would handle this. Especially if you're early on just dating, that's a pretty big red flag. Do a good job of explaining to him that it's important to you. This is something I really get a lot of joy out of. You're welcome to come check it out. It's not for everybody. Some people come in and they don't like it, and you might come in and you might enjoy it. But it's something that's important to me. And if you want to take that away from me, a big joy in my life, that could be a red flag that they really don't care that much about you, and they're wanting, what's best for them all the time. And really what's best for them is to have a happy you. So it's kind of counterproductive. But, if they just want you to stay around home all the time, I think the classic example is the high school guy or gal who gets their first, boyfriend or girlfriend, and they just disappear. It's like, oh, there they go.
Happens all the time. Yep.
But, I think that's a red flag. I'm not trying to give relationship advice, but maybe it's on your end that you haven't explained how important and how much you get out of it besides just learning how to fight and
communication.
Yeah. It goes both ways.
You have to be open. Yeah. You have to be open with it and explain what it means to you. And I hear you laughing about that too. But I'm glad I haven't been in that situation where you're kind of forced to choose. And I've known people who've had to do that. And that'd be a rough one there. Yeah.
And it hopefully people find jiu-jitsu at all stages of life. You could be married and have many kids and been happily married for a long time, and suddenly jiu-jitsu is a problem. It might be a problem that your spouse isn't getting their free time anymore. So maybe you have to look for ways to I know I get 2 hours twice a week that go train. How can we find some time for you to go do something that you want to do and get out of here and do that? Maybe that's all it is. It's just kind of keep happy that way.
Yeah, maybe she wants to do something that you don't like as a couple. Like she wants to do swing dancing classes and you hate dancing. But, hey, if you want to do your jiu-jitsu, maybe you do swing dancing or whatever once a week.
But that's the problem. Another problem with that, Gary, that's how you broke your ankle is dancing.
Yeah, yep, it happens. It happens. But, I've actually known a guy that his wife did not want him to do jiu-jitsu and basically told him that. He basically said he was going to school at night, taking a night class, and he would go train jiu-jitsu. She had no clue till after a couple of years. He never did get a degree, but, he got a couple of years better.
Wait, I don't endorse lying flat out about what you're doing and how you come home all sweaty.
How do you explain that like 3 years down the road when your wife's like, hey, when you graduate? And you're like, well, I still got a long way to go. I've been failing every class.
Yeah, you get tagged in a blue belt post. Got my blue belt today. Just head on further down the list here. Real quick, you hit a few of the last ones up. Your health. Some degree, your health is in your hands. You could eat healthy, you could train smart, and really take good care of yourself. But in a lot of ways, your health is not in your hands at all. you could do all these things and be super healthy, and then boom, you're hospitalized with some illness that you're in a fight for your life, or you're in a fight to stay on the mats, and maybe it's being taken away from you. And if you have the gift of being healthy, I think it's nice to think about it every now and then. Like, yeah, I am physically able to go train today. Do I want to take advantage of that? I think I do, because tomorrow I may be sick, I may have the flu, or I might be, really sick and looking at never training again. I think I'm going to train today. This will be a great day to train. And just that gift of health is one that is also overlooked. The gift of a great team, Gary. Think about that. You walk in, you have a great team. You may not have a world-class coach, but you have a team you love, and they take care of you, and they're good at jiu-jitsu. That's a huge gift.
That's in my opinion, I think that's like one of the biggest gifts I get from jiu-jitsu is the team I train with. And it doesn't matter. And not, I consider everybody my team, even if you go to different schools. Anybody that kind of trains with me, I consider a team. But I personally think that's the biggest gift I get out of jiu-jitsu, not, learning these techniques and getting good at it or being able to defend myself in a self-defense situation. What means more to me than anything is these people I've met along the way and people that I couldn't get better without these people. I couldn't train while I'm hurt. Like, Byron was talking earlier about health, and I've hurt my back, kind of losing feeling in my leg, and it has made me question jiu-jitsu a little bit. Today was my first day back after a week, and first thing I do is I have a great teammate.
Thank you for being a friend.
I'm rolling with Byron first round, and I was like, hey Byron, it's my first day back. He didn't even know I'd been injured. He had no clue, and he's rolling. It was my first test coming back to see how my leg is. It's actually my back, but it's a nerve that's deadened kind of my leg. And, this is a little scary for me. And, my very first roll back, I have a great teammate who just rolls, 70% with me. Doesn't put me in any bad positions. Asks me if I want to start on top or bottom. If we get in a position that could put pressure on my back, he's backing off. And, and then on top of that, if you ever have any issues, we're not just talking about jiu-jitsu, but family issues or relationship issues or job issues. These people, they're your saviors. They're your friends. They're your teammates. They're your family. They're there for you. And, in my opinion, that's the one thing I do get the most out of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. It's a pleasure rolling with you this morning, and I apologize for the twister.
Yeah, but, I did get out of it.
No, you just toughed it out. You didn't really do an escape.
Well,
I got tired of cranking.
I had mental toughness, and your strength, you have a disadvantage in the strength section.
That's true, Gary. I got to admit that one. The last one I have on my list, and it's really not that exciting, is just you're in a situation where you have a steady income or money's not a problem. And if you've never been there before, it's hard to appreciate that. But some people, I guarantee you, if you have a class of 30 people, some of those people are considering, well, can I afford jiu-jitsu next month?
Yeah.
Can I afford this activity I'm doing? I'm looking at my calendar. I get paid in a week and a half. And am I going to, I don't know if I'm able to do jiu-jitsu for the next couple of months because, I could be at work right now instead of actually training, or maybe I can be out there looking for a job instead of training. Having a steady income, kind of being steady income, I guess we could just say being financially stable is something that you provide yourself. It's one of those gifts that like strength, that you're earning that strength. But some people come from tremendous advantages. If you come from a family that had, financial problems as you're growing up, the odds are that might be passed down to you. You might not ever have that stable financial setting versus if you come from a place where it was very stable and they helped you, get on your feet very safely and cautiously and get going. And it may not be a problem, but just acknowledge that a lot of your teammates and maybe you're in that boat are really considering, can I afford to train? And that's rough.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen. I've heard people talk about it, and we all know it happens. There's people who struggle to train jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is not free. You know, it does cost money, and without money, it's very hard to train. And so that's a tough one there. It's like you know, you want to train, but like you said, maybe I should be out looking for a job. Maybe I should take this extra shift to get me a little bit more money. You know, stuff like that. I remember, you know, a buddy of mine who I know was struggling real big time with money issues. And you know, I remember he wanted to go to a seminar we had coming in town, and he didn't have the money. So, you know, I paid for him. You know, I knew he really wanted to do it. And, you know, I would, you know, the people, you know, I had the means to do it. And, I mean, if I ever knew he was quitting jiu-jitsu and I had the means, I'd probably help out, you know, on a monthly basis too. But that's a tough situation when, you know, that might be the toughest out of all of them. I'm thinking, you know, when you're struggling to find the money, you know, and let's say you've already cut out everything, you know, you stopped, you cut out your cable or you stopped going out to eat, and you're still struggling. And I totally understand where that coming from. You know, you could have kids and rent's high, and makes it tough to find that monthly tuition money.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on there, Gary. And it just comes down to priorities, you know. Jiu-jitsu is a high priority for me. I think it is for you too, Gary. But you start deleting these things that are also important to me that I just take for granted. And it's like, man, I have to have this. I have to have a place to live. You know, my wife and I don't want her to be in a place where she's not comfortable living. Okay, I put that there. But a lot of times,
you have kids. Yeah.
A lot of times, if you are looking at that, talk to your coach. Don't. You know, if money's an issue and you can't afford to go anymore, just have that conversation with your coach. Hey, coach, I'm really enjoying this. I'm getting a lot out of it. You know, I've been training for, you know, X, they probably know, but I'm going to take off a month or two. I just can't afford to come in. And they may have, hey, come in and sweep the gym. You know, when you're here 3 times a week, I want you to clean up and do this. Come here a little bit early or stay a little bit late and clean up. And, you know, it's on me for these few months where you're getting your feet back underneath you. You might have that conversation. If not, they say, okay, that's a perfectly understandable thing to have problems with money. And they won't just wonder, oh, did he quit? Is he mad? Or what happened with him? And I think it just helps kind of smooth things over. That, like we said, communication. And if you're having problems with money, just sharing that with your coach and not using it as an excuse, but just saying, hey, man, it's pretty tough right now. And you know, work has not been as steady as I'd like. And they're cutting hours or whatever's happening to you, just explain it to him or her and tell them the situation. And maybe they'll be able to help you. It comes back again to being that people person, having that gift and somebody that they really like and want you at the gym. They might be able to find a way to keep you there, even if you can't pay for it.
Yeah, great point, Byron. Communication is always good.
It does go both ways. That kind of wraps up the stuff I had as far as your gifts and BJJ. We could go countless amount of things. You know, just look for how many things that you are fortunate to have. Try not to look somebody at the negative. We all have things that are holding us back a little bit, but just get past those and make the best out of your jiu-jitsu.
Yep, that's the key. Make the best out of your jiu-jitsu, and you know, everything else will come.
And now that you have the key, unlock the lock.
If you have a lock.
Oh, well, you have a key.
But sometimes you don't have a lock. Oh. Maybe the lock's broken.
Man, I don't know. I have a key to a broken lock. I don't even really want the key anymore, Gary. I don't know where this is going.
Well, maybe you should get another lock, but sometimes people can't afford the lock. And we could talk about that all day. Is it something that you should cut out, the locks, if you can't afford a new one?
I don't know. Man, this is tough.
Yep.
Great news. It's been too long since we've had a Matt Tales, but now it's back. Matt Tales.
This is Matt Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The stories might be funny, unfortunate. It could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Matt Tales.
This Matt Tale takes place in a time before every cell phone had GPS. and before I really knew how to drive that well, because I was learning how to drive and trying to gain some independence. At about this time, I also discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My dad took me to the first class. I loved it. It was very fun and exciting. For the night of the second class, I convinced my dad to let me borrow his car and drive the class myself, thus freeing up his evening and allowing me to gain a little independence, pursuing activities that I wanted to do. So about an hour before class, I got out a map. And if you're in the younger generation, maps are these things on paper that unfold and show you the way things are laid out in a city. Because yes, I did not have a cell phone with GPS on it, so I needed to figure this out before I struck out onto the road. My dad showed me the route. It seemed fairly simple. I was going to drive down until I got to First Street. Once I hit First Street, I would go south for about 20 minutes. In about 20 minutes, I would run into the academy, which was perfect. Pretty simple and easy drive. So confident in my ability to get myself there, my dad wished me luck and told me to drive safely, and I headed out with my gi in my bag for my second class of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Just like my dad said, I'm going to go down till I get to First Street. Once I get to First Street, do I turn right or left? Oh man, trying to remember which way south was. He told me to go south. I'm taking a right. Well, taking a right was the wrong turn. I should have went south, which would have been a left. So I put 20 minutes into the wrong direction. A full 30 minutes into driving, I'm confident that I must have passed my destination and didn't notice it. After all, a lot's going on in my car. I'm trying to watch out for signs and road hazards. I'm new at this. This process is taking up a lot of my ability to look around for my gym. So I find a parking lot and turn around. And now I'm headed south, but I'm quite the distance from the gym. But I think I'm just a few minutes away because I've only driven past the gym by a few minutes. So I head back the street I came, looking for my gym. I drive 15 minutes in the correct direction, and that nearly gets me to First Street. I drive 15 minutes the way I came, getting me much closer to where I started, but I'm still confident that I turned the correct way. So I turn back around again. And now I'm really confused. So I'm headed back north, the wrong direction from my academy, wondering what is going on. None of this stuff is really familiar from last time when my dad took me. Finally, I pulled over, consulted my map, tried to figure out what was going on. Finally, I decided to turn the wrong way at my original turn. So I drove back from the way I came, past where I started from, and drove 20 minutes in the right direction, where I was able to spot my gym from my car. Perfect. I pulled into the parking lot. Looking at the clock, I was almost an hour late to my second class of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a class that lasts a little over an hour. I sat in the car, considering my options. I did not want to make a bad impression. After all, nobody needs to know that I am running super late. If I just don't go in, I won't make the instructor upset. I won't look bad walking in really late. So I weighed my options, and I decided to go home. I drove home. I made all the correct turns, which was really nice. But I got home about 20 minutes early. So I parked down the block and waited for the time to pass. After all, I would be embarrassed if I came home early and had to confess to my dad that I turned the wrong way. I didn't know which way south was. Why couldn't he just tell me to turn which direction, right or left, not north or south? I don't navigate via a compass. So I waited for 20 minutes down the road, and then I came home at the correct time. My dad asked me how class was. I said, great. I threw my perfectly dry gi in the wash machine and turned it on and washed my gi to give the appearance that I had worked out. Then I hit the shower. I needed to give the full illusion that I was successful with my driving endeavor. A couple days go by and it's time for class again. I reaffirm with the map. I asked my dad, right or left? I needed to really get this down. He seemed a bit curious of why I was needing to get the full set of directions again. The same thing you did last time, son. Go south. Yeah, but it's south, right, or left? I don't remember. Well, he explained it to me a little bit better this time. I headed off to class. I was driving in a rainstorm this time, which was a new thing for me. But I made it to class on time and enjoyed, which was my second class, which should have been my third. After class got out, the rain was really coming down hard. I got back in the car and headed back home. Now, unfortunately, First Street doesn't deal with the water very well. There were several inches of high water. I was navigating on First Street. I would have liked to take an alternate route, but I don't know an alternate route. So I must charge on. After about 10 minutes, the water got really deep, and I flooded my car. I was stranded. With no cell phone, I had to get out of my car with my gi pants on and walk to the nearest convenience store. I found a convenience store where I explained to my dad that I had flooded the car and was stranded. He asked if I was okay, and I said yes. As I stood there in the store with my gi pants on, he asked, "Where are you?" Which was a valid question, but one I could not answer because I don't know where I am. I'm just headed back from class. I don't know where I go in that route. So, in what was a disappointing moment, I'm sure, for my dad, I handed the phone to the owner of the convenience store, and he gave him directions.
This has been Matt Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may in fact have taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Matt Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your tales to bjjbrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories.
We are extremely thankful for our supporters on Patreon. 2 new ones to welcome in, Mindy and Alexander. Thanks so much, guys. Patreon is a website that is built to support content producers like podcasters. So Mindy and Alexander are pledging some money per episode. You could pledge $1, $3, whatever you feel that you want to do. In every episode that comes out, at the end of the month, if we had 4, which is pretty typical, they'd be charged $4 if they're pledging $1 per episode. And it's a charge on the credit card, and it's going to be a monthly thing. But it's just a way to kick us a little bit of money. More and more people are getting on there doing it. And it's really helping us become, more stable. Like we were talking about being financially strong and stable. Patreon's been a great help to that. And our new supporters, Mindy and Alexander. Thanks so much, guys. It's been, we go months sometimes without getting any new supporters, and we got 2 new ones to talk about. So really excited about that. And it means a ton that Mindy and Alexander hopped on to Patreon. There'll be a link in the show notes if you're interested in doing that, and signed up and are lending some help and saying, hey, we like what you're doing, and we're going to back you guys with a little bit of money. Yep.
So thank you, Mindy and Alexander. Also, check out BJJ Brick on social media. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook, BJJ Brick. We're on Twitter. So definitely check us out on those different social media avenues. And also tell your friends about it. Tell your friends about the podcast. Tell your friends about the YouTube page. Definitely our biggest form of flattery is when somebody says, hey, I'm listening to your podcast because my friend Billy told me about you. So, we really appreciate you letting anybody know about us.
All right, article of the week. This time we have a good one, visiting another school, getting the most out of a drop-in. It was written by our friend Joe Thomas, and also published on our website because Joe is very gracious enough to send articles our way. Gary, good thing. Buddy, we got Joe on the line to discuss this article with him.
Yeah, I've noticed we've been getting a lot of people emailing into us at bjjbrick@gmail.com asking if we could talk less and we have Joe talk a little bit more. So this is for all our listeners out there who are demanding more of Joe. And most of the time they say, please don't have Byron on. But we will try to keep Byron to a minimum here and Joe to a maximum. So, hey, welcome to the show, Joe. Thanks for taking some time to come in and talk to us.
So I've been paying guys and handing out your email address. It looks like it's paying off. How you guys doing?
We're doing great, but the best thing is Joe came up with that on the fly. We didn't even talk about that on top of it. So good one there, Joe. You fit in perfect with the group.
Yeah, good to be here, guys.
Awesome. Silence, Gary. Gary, I was going to see how long I go without talking, and I can't do it. Joe,
I was going to let you in. That's how nice I am.
Introduce us to the article, my friend.
If If you were quiet one more second, I was just going to jump in and take over anyway. So, so I wrote a couple articles and sent them your way along the lines of how to get the most out of whatever aspect of jiu-jitsu we were thinking about that day. And Byron commented that it wasn't a bad model for articles. So I thought I'd take a stab at this. It seems like anybody that's done jiu-jitsu for even just a few months, certainly by the time you've done it a year or two, you get the itch to start going around and visiting other schools and stuff. And I thought it takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of money, so certainly it's something you want to get the most out of. So I put my brain to work and came up with, looks like about 7 ways off the top of my head that you could get the most out of the experience. So the first couple all kind of go together. Identify as many schools in the area that might be worth visiting, do some research, and call ahead with the first 3 points. I've done this quite a bit, and one thing I've noticed is that not all jiu-jitsu schools have a big web presence, and you actually might have to do some digging a little bit on the internet to find them. So I tried different search terms, different locations, and always come up with 2 or 3 more than I did initially. And I've also found that online discussion groups, forums, I know I'm part of jiu-jitsuforums.com. If you're going to a new city, it's always worth just throwing a question out and asking if anybody's trained there before. You might be surprised and get turned on a good place to study or to train. And then point number... Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe. Well, I was going to say real quick, I think that's really smart, like you said, about forums. Like you said, a lot don't have the great web presence. But, just asking around, I see it. I'm on the underground a lot. I see, that weekly, maybe every day somebody asking about. And no better, somebody helping you out and giving you a recommendation than, other jiu-jitsu practitioners. So definitely check that one out. That's an awesome idea there, Joe.
Yep.
Joe, you do have a good point, Joe, about not all schools having a web presence. It's a bit of work, especially for the smaller schools, to develop and produce a website, and some of them just don't even bother. But most of them will have a Facebook presence, and you could try searching on there as well and maybe find schools in the area that you're going to be traveling.
Yep, yeah, and even treat Facebook as like another forum and just throw the question out there. I've got so many friends that I've met only online. We're Facebook friends. I don't even know where half of them live. So if I said I'm visiting Timbuktu, Montana next week, does anybody know a school? I very well may have a Facebook friend that lives in the area. So it's worth asking.
Yeah, definitely. Another great idea there. We get so many friends just from, the jiu-jitsu community and not even jiu-jitsu community, but just, friends and neighbors and people you've met. And you never know. Just throwing that out there, you might get some great recommendations.
Yep. So then I suggest that people do a little research to maybe have an idea of what they're getting into. I always enjoy it more if I'm not completely surprised when I walk in the door as to the class structure and the material being taught. I don't mind training MMA, but if I have my gi and I think I'm going to do gi jiu-jitsu and I get there and it's a striking class, I'd prefer knowing that in advance. And you can tell a lot about a school just by their Facebook page, their web page, pictures they post, and that sort of thing. And certainly I always call ahead or email and talk to the guys before I go. I make sure that I know what the drop-in fee will be, make sure the class is appropriate for my skill level, and I always check to see if there's any uniform requirements. Some schools really prefer a white gi, and I hate to show up in a camo gi or something, and I'm the only one out of dress code, so I include that with the questions I ask.
Yeah, Gary's been looked at very strangely for wearing his pink tie-dye gi to schools while he travels.
What's wrong with pink, Byron?
No, it's the tie-dye thing, Gary. Come on. That's not cool anymore.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I was just checking.
It's not one of those one-piece short romper
gis.
Yeah,
the rompers? Yeah, I'm really big into rompers, but I normally just use those in no-gi.
All right, I got you. So I think when we get to point 4 here in the article, guys, is when it gets, I think, a little more crucial to actually getting something out of it and getting the best experience. The next couple points I think are pretty important. And the first one is go with an open mind. No matter how much homework you do, you can get to the class and it not be anything like you expected. The last drop-in I did was about 2-3 weeks ago, and I went with my 14-year-old nephew. It was the first time he's ever done jiu-jitsu, and I called ahead and made sure it was the right class and that we would both be welcomed. And I was expecting some good rolls. I was looking forward to rolling with some people I haven't met before, and when we got there, it's a new school. It's only 3 months old, and they're still developing their student body. My nephew and I were the only two in class. So initially I was maybe a little disappointed, but it turned out to be the coach was awesome, and he basically gave my nephew an hour and a half free, or we paid $10 a piece, but gave my nephew an hour and a half private lesson for his first introduction to jiu-jitsu.
That's awesome right there. Like you said, at first you looked in and you're like, hey, we're the only two there. But, it turned into be a great time. Your nephew got free instruction, and it kind of reminds me of something I saw the other day. Tom DeBlast was talking, and he was saying something to the tune of, what do you do if you don't have, the best training partners, in the world? And, let's say you're Tom DeBlast and you come train with me. What do you do when your training partners aren't up to your level or that great? And he said, you just train. It doesn't matter. You just train, you're going to get better. And that's like you guys went in there and there's only two people, just the instructor and you two. And, you could have put your head down and said, oh, this is going to be terrible. But no, like you said, you went in with an open mind and, you met the instructor, you found out a really great guy. And then your nephew, your 14-year-old nephew got a free private lesson, basically a $10 private lesson. So you can't beat that.
Yeah. Oh, well, and I did tighten up my Kimura a little bit too. And then the instructor was nice enough to, I winked at my wife and said, count, because the instructor said, how about a 10-minute roll real quick? And, he only tapped me 10 times, so I felt pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I rolled 5 minutes with my nephew, so I really couldn't ask for more. And it was awesome. A good experience. So, and then, of course, the point number 5, this is applicable no matter where you are, but I think especially if you're visiting a new school, is to be humble. It may take a while to get to this point in your jiu-jitsu, but I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anyone. And if I walk out of the school and there's people going, oh, man, that guy, I'm not sure he's a purple belt, I'd rather have them doing that than thinking, boy, we don't ever want that guy to come back because I was spazzing out and hurting people.
Yeah, that's a great one. Like Byron always says, you don't want to walk in there and roll like a wounded cougar.
Nice. That's what I'm always worried about.
Yeah.
I had to throw that one in somehow.
Yep, I almost spit my drink on my computer.
I don't want you to drool like a wounded cougar.
Oh, the good times.
So point number 6, how many friends would you say you guys have that you met on a jiu-jitsu match, just out of curiosity?
Well, I make a ton of friends doing it, probably, in the hundreds. But there's a key point. I make a lot of friends if I'm by myself. If I'm with Byron, nobody likes me. So I try to go by myself most of the time.
Yeah, you can look at that a couple different ways. I think I'm absorbing all the friends in the room when I'm with Gary, and he looks like such a kind of a sad and lonely guy. Nobody wants to go talk to him.
You turned it on me.
Yeah, I did.
Turned it on me.
Gary.
Yeah, good job. Good
Joe,
job.
Joe, that's a good question. Hey, I really do enjoy traveling and getting on the mats. And then finding, a handful of people I got to meet and finding them on Facebook and adding them. And, yeah, it's, 2 years will go by, I'll post a picture up, and they'll like it. And same thing back and forth. Like, they'll post something like, oh, that's cool. Look how he's doing. And so I've got friends literally on the other side of the world who will post a tournament picture, and I'll see that. And I'll remember rolling with them and training and look at how they're training now and doing good. So, yeah, I really think that's a fun way to just kind of your own personal community to develop that.
Yeah, I suppose you could argue whether or not that constitutes a friendship, but certainly my life, I feel, is better off for having the people I meet on the mat still involved in my life, even if it's just marginally like that.
Yeah, I think that, you can consider him a friend, and, just think of the stuff we talked about earlier. You've met him, and it's not necessarily you hang out with them, or they may live across the country or whatnot, but, you throw out a question, they're out there to help you. Hey, where's good jiu-jitsu in Vancouver? And let's say they're from there. They're going to tell you. They're going to invite you in. They're going to, take care of you. They're going to pick you up and take you to the gym if you're around there. And like Byron and I were talking this morning, we got a lady who listens to us, and one day out of the blue last summer wanted to know if we were going to be around to train. And she ended up she's from Germany, stayed a month, came back again for another holiday, and we were talking here this morning. She's getting ready to come back in another week or two to train for a couple months. So we're really excited, and even though she lives in Germany, I always I know I got a great friend, and if I ever go out there, I know she'll take care of me and take me around town.
So you guys are an international sensation.
Well, I like to think of that of myself, but most people don't.
The word, we are international. Sensation is a word that we haven't quite lived up to yet, Joe.
So true.
Yep, so true. All right, and I feel pretty strongly about the last point, guys, to leave the school a good review. For a brief period of time, I was involved in the ownership of our gym while I was transitioning from one owner to the next, and I can tell you it's a hard job. And anytime I can do something to help a school owner or a club or even just a group of guys training in their garage, anytime I can do something to help make it easier for them, I'm happy to do it.
That's the best thing about jiu-jitsu is like what you said right there. Anytime I can help somebody out, I'm willing to do it. And I think that's what makes jiu-jitsu so great. There's a lot of great people in there. We don't just care about ourselves, which I'm going to give a little forewarning in the next article that Joe talks about. You'll know what I'm talking about there. But, we care about others, and we want to grow the sport and help everybody out. And that's definitely one thing Joe does.
I do my best, guys.
Yeah, the review is a great way to help somebody, help out that school that you just attended. Some of these schools, you go to their website or you go to you find them on Google, and they have full reviews, and they could have 50 students. So you could write like 20% of their reviews in 2 minutes. It doesn't take very much time, and that could be a pretty big reason why somebody comes into school. They look at the stars and they try to figure out what's going on there, and just a handful more reviews. That's what it's helped this podcast quite a bit. People write reviews for us and give us a positive review. People are stumbling through the different podcasts that they're looking for, trying to find something new, and they might read some reviews. Same thing. It takes 2 minutes, and it helps out a ton. And if you go visit a school, and you had a good time, give them a 5-star review and write a paragraph about what you did and how much fun you had there.
Yep, and even if you didn't visit a school but you train at that school, like Byron says, there could be 50 students at a school but only 4 reviews. Hey, do a review for your school. Everything you can do to help build your school is going to help you become a better jiu-jitsu person in the long run. So anybody listening that hasn't went out and reviewed their school, do it now.
Do it.
Joe, I really enjoyed the article, and
Thanks,
I think it's got a lot of great advice, and a lot of people have found it very useful.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. We will talk again soon.
All right, we'll talk to you next time, guys.
Gary, I'm excited. Next week, we have the youngest person to ever qualify for ADCC. Her name is Elizabeth Clay. She's 16, and it's going to be an amazing experience for her to go over there and compete this time at ADCC, and really looking forward to sharing with you that interview and introducing you to Elizabeth Clay. Phenomenal grappler, reaching some pretty high peaks at such a young age. Very impressive. And I got to say, if you're in the Wichita area, come by and train. We're in Wichita, Kansas. And I always tell people who I interview who are international, where's Kansas? 2 above Texas. 2 states anyway. So if you're in the area of Wichita, Kansas, and you'd like to meet us or train, we'd be happy to get on the mat with you guys. That's always a highlight to have that experience for us. email us, bjjbrick@gmail.com, or send us a message on our Facebook page, and we will get on the mat with you guys if at all possible. We love it.
And remember, we're only 2 above Texas.
2 states above Texas. I want you to open your gifts early this year. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And open your gifts early.
How'd you think of that one, Gary?
I don't know.
All right.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Hey, my friend, Byron jumping in here at the end of the show. Just wanted to say a couple things that happened after the show was recorded. I was piecing together the show notes, and I needed an image to go with this. And sure enough, I found a picture of a person running wrapped up as a present. And I put Gary's face on that picture, and it is now the image that goes with this episode. So go by bjjbrick.com, check out episode 189, and check out Gary as a gift. And also episode 184 is the episode about speed that we're talking about. It's about a month old, and I did the same thing to Gary. I put him on the poster for the movie Speed. The episode's all about speed, and I'm trying to find an image, and I found that poster. Keanu Reeves is on it, of course, and Gary's face pasted nicely over that. That's the main thing that he'll be surprised by. Also, the Golden Girls music, Thank You for Being a Friend, is playing, and that is also something he didn't know about. He's talking about how great of a training partner and he's getting kind of cheesy on us and a little bit too much for me. So I decided to start playing that music just to kind of really ham it up. So a couple things that Gary and I were unaware of as we recorded this. So, yep, good times as always. We'll catch you next week, my friend.